The Denver Broncos were trounced on the road by Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the Baltimore Ravens. What's next for this team after a disappointing loss against one of the AFC's top contenders? We'll break that down and much more here on today's brand new episode, Locked On Broncos.
You are Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, Broncos Country? Welcome into another episode, Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where you know it's your team every day. We appreciate you so much, Broncos Country, whether the team wins or loses. Thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. And thank you to all the everydayers out there in Broncos Country for making Locked On Broncos exactly what it is. I'm Cody Roark, Broncos reporter for Mile High Sports, joined as always by Sayre Bedinger, site expert over there, predominantly orange.com. Broncos following on the road in blowout fashion to Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the Baltimore Ravens. A disappointing outcome, but a lot to break down in this game. And look, Broncos Country, we'll wrap up today's show by talking about the NFL trade deadline looming a little bit larger. Could this change the Broncos' approach because of the loss, maybe for the NFL trade deadline on Tuesday? Bo Nix had some opportunities in Sunday's game, but he wasn't the reason why they lost. He wasn't an issue, and there was a clear thing that stood out about the offense outside of Bo Nix that we'll break down as well. But then we'll kick things off by talking about the Broncos defense getting torched by Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and company. Get all that here on today's Locked On Broncos post-game report, brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel Sportsbook. And start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Sayre, man, I tell you what, this was a very interesting game up until the final 2 minutes of the first half here for the Broncos. You know, at one point, it's like, hey, okay, you're going to the locker room. Okay, lucky it's a 17-10 deficit, but things got away. Denver's defense got torched, and really in the final 2 minutes, it created a little bit of a negative snowball effect that trickled down into the third quarter for Denver defensively. They got whooped on Sunday's game.
Yeah, there's really no other way to put it. I mean, you just took a beating at the hands of the Baltimore Ravens. They had their way, every way that they wanted to have it in this game, Cody, and it was tough to watch because we've gotten used to the Broncos defense being a lot tougher than this. So we felt like at the very least, you know, they'd be able to at least smack the Ravens in the mouth a little bit and make this a physical game, get it down to maybe the fourth quarter and stay in this thing. The problem is that this defense just they I don't know what was going on schematically, Cody. I mean, I'll be eager to see your film review breakdown of this game because I was curious as to why Pat Surtain wasn't covering Zay Flowers just man-to-man this entire game. We heard Matt Ryan on the broadcast kind of point out at halftime that the Broncos only blitzed on 29% of those plays in the first half. And I realized that Lamar Jackson is good against the blitz. I understand that. But, man, that's been the Broncos' bread and butter all season long, and you went away from that in this game and allowed Lamar to still pick you apart. I mean, it's like, if he's still picking you apart, what's the harm in at least trying to get him with extra pressure? So the Broncos go away from what works well from them, even knowing that Lamar Jackson is good against the blitz, Cody. I would have taken my chances there, especially as the Broncos were kind of playing, they were gambling quite a bit in this game. We saw the offense go forward on fourth down, just barely on the plus side of the field a couple of times. And they also, went for it when they had an opportunity to kick a field goal. So it wasn't like they were out of field goal range. So they were, like we talked about in the lead up last week, not necessarily just playing with house money, but I think the Broncos were trying to kind of steal one on the road here. And those extra possessions that the Ravens got, I mean, they maximized. The Broncos may have sold out to stop the run. They weren't stopping nothing out there. It didn't matter. Zay Flowers, Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, all these guys for the Baltimore Ravens had their, I think Lamar Jackson finished with a perfect passer rating in this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did. And look, in the first half alone, he was 11 of 12 passing for, I think, 208 yards, 2 touchdowns. Bateman, I think, had 4 catches, $111 and 2 touchdowns there. It was just a combination of, I would say, the Ravens and Lamar. I thought he did it. You look at what he's able to do in some of those plays, like the way he can look certain defenders off with his eyes. But it's like, even at times, he's standing in the pocket and he's delivering, and I think from a play call standpoint, this is tough because I agree with you to an extent. The blitz has to be able to, have an effect on Lamar. But I saw it a lot on social media too, and there were a lot of mentions about this. Like, you just need to send out an all-out pressure. Like, well, Denver wasn't stopping. Like, Denver was having a really big problem with the speed of obviously Zay Flowers. His speed was a difference maker on deep crossing patterns. He was attacking the soft spots against zone coverage. He was beating man coverage. And so when you aren't getting home, and look, even Lamar did damage in the pocket, but he also did damage with his arm getting outside the pocket. I mean, there were a couple of times Broncos defenders looked like they're about to wrap him up, and he squirrels his way out, makes a play happen, goes downfield and finds success there. Once again, we even said it, one of our biggest keys in this game was early down success. I think in the first half for Denver, up until that final 2-minute mark, Denver did a pretty good job, and then it really got away from him. Then the second half, it was almost like they were worn down. Derrick Henry started to get going a little bit more, breaking off some big-time runs. Denver simply could not get off the field, and I mean, it was a negative outcome. And look, I think the one thing, my conclusion that I have from this game, Sayre, look, I think when the schedule came out, everybody penciled this as a loss. I wanted to see Denver to be more competitive. I think in the first half they were, and then it just got away from them. I think, by and large, my biggest conclusion from this game is obviously Denver's defense. They had a letdown game here. But more importantly, it's clear. I think Baltimore right now, you look at them, I think they are clear cut above everybody else right now in the entire AFC. The most efficient offense coming into this matchup, the most dangerous offense, and certainly they proved it in this game. It's the Baltimore Ravens right now, I think, that are miles ahead of everybody in the AFC, and everybody else is like, hey, we're just going to be in the conversation. If that offense stays healthy, I don't know, Sayre, who's going to stop Baltimore in the postseason. It just really depends on what Baltimore team shows up. But when fully healthy, when they play how they did today, I mean, it didn't matter what Denver did. There was nothing, I think, that Denver couldn't keep up with that offense, even if Denver's offense was firing on all cylinders. That was my biggest conclusion here. I'm not as disappointed about the outcome in a sense of knowing like, hey, Denver still has a long ways to go, which is fine because, Sayre, you and I talked about it to the point you made about house money. Denver's got one of the youngest rosters right now in the league. Nobody expected them to be where they're at least right now. And that team right there in Baltimore is a clear-cut example of who you want to be. And I think of sticking with the quarterback and letting him develop a little bit the way that Lamar has. Certainly he's grown so much as a passer. That was my main conclusion from this game. Obviously, the loss stinks. And obviously now you drop to 5-4. You have a 2-3 conference record. You lose the tiebreaker to Baltimore, but Baltimore is legit. Denver is still going to be in the conversation for the playoffs here. They're still very much in the mix, but man, you don't want to be the team that has to face Baltimore in the postseason.
No, the Baltimore Ravens are kind of the opposite of the Denver Broncos right now, even though they had the same record going into this game. That's a team that, man, you look at them on paper going into a game like this, and you see a roster that has built around a quarterback for years and years, and they've done it so well. And they just even brought in another
giving him playmakers,
got his feet wet. So yeah, you playmakers, you got all sorts of playmakers. What's that like? So I would love to know what that feels like, Cody. Actually, I was there in 2013. Shout out to the 2013 Broncos. That was a lot of fun. And it felt like that was pretty similar to what the Ravens have right now. It's just like, obviously, any direction they want to go with the football, handing it off, throwing it, it doesn't matter. The Broncos just couldn't do anything about it, which is, like you said, that's really the disappointing aspect of it. It was funny because late in the first half, it was 17-10 late in the first half. And if the defense just holds it to a field goal, even at the end of the first half there, it's maybe interesting to begin the second half. But the blowout began when the defense just had a total lapse. Defensive backs out of position almost the entire game, getting called for penalties, getting absolutely burned, zone coverage not holding up, man coverage not holding up, the pass rush not getting home. So it's games like that where it's like, well, everything that could go wrong did go wrong for the Denver Broncos, starting on their first offensive possession where you give the Ravens a short field and they capitalize. And well, actually, they didn't capitalize on that one. They got sacked out of field goal range. That was the one win for the Denver defense all game, but it was just kind of setting the tone for the game. So I think for the Broncos, this was a wake-up call, similar to, I know you dreaded going into this game, like, don't let this be another Detroit Lions game from last year. That's kind of similar to what it was. It wasn't as out of hand as the Miami game where guys didn't even look like they knew what they were doing out there, but it was like the Detroit game where you just kind of you just got absolutely whipped in every facet. Now, how do you respond coming back from that?
That's the biggest key because the Kansas City Chiefs are coming up next year. We'll also highlight the Broncos offense in Sunday's loss against the Baltimore Ravens. The biggest picture that we have here is that really it wasn't Bo Nix that was the issue. There are a lot of promising things Nix did, but there is one glaring issue surrounding the Broncos offense. We'll highlight what that is here on today's Locked On Broncos. This show is brought to you by our friends over there at Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold LLC. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at Prize Picks. And as you all know it, Prize Picks are the best place to get real money sports action on daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks, they make daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. So run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy so that your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Sign up today and get a $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks is the best way to win real money this football season. Which players are going off, which ones aren't. Make your picks in less than 60 seconds and turn your sports opinions into real money all season long on Prize Picks. So check it out. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
The Denver Broncos may have got smoked in Baltimore, but you know what? The silver lining is that Bo Nix, he was not at fault for the loss. Actually, Bo Nix played a pretty darn good game on Sunday. Cody and I are going to break down Bo's performance and why he was not the issue on Sunday in Baltimore. But Broncos Country, thanks so much for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. We appreciate you so much for making us part of your day whenever and however you choose to do so, especially those that rock every day, even after a blowout loss like this, to talk about your favorite team, the Denver Broncos. We got you every single day here on the show. Let's talk about Bo Nix in this game, Cody, because, I mean, obviously the interception on the first possession went right off the hands of Lil Jordan Humphrey. And if people are watching on YouTube, they might see me rolling my eyes at that. Or if you're just listening, you wouldn't see, but I'm rolling my eyes as I'm talking about that because, man, it's so frustrating to me that the offense continues to have issues with. You don't want to, I mean, they're shooting themselves in the foot. It's just so frustrating to see. Like, I realize that you could split hairs over, well, was the ball too high or this, that, and the other? It's like the reality is the dude has to catch the ball. I mean, he's having a problem with that over the last handful of weeks and dating back to the beginning of the regular season against Seattle, where I remember tweeting like to the effect of, if Sean Payton wants to call this guy up off the practice squad, he's got to make catches. And the reality right now is, Cody, is that Bo Nix might be the second best receiver on this dang team. We saw him catch a touchdown pass from Courtland Sutton here in this game against the Ravens, and it was the only touchdown on the day for the Broncos. But I mean, I say that tongue in cheek. Legitimately, who on this team is good at playing wide receiver right now? I mean, these guys stink. It's tough to watch. It's brutal for a young quarterback, and there's no involvement once again from the tight end. It's so sporadic. Cody, Bo Nix he might as well be out there thrown to me because I could drop a pass. I could go out there and drop a pass if the Broncos want. I could go out there and stick a hand out and get a hand on it, tip it to a defender. I don't even know if I'd make it off the line of scrimmage, but certainly if they got the ball to me, I could pop it up in the air. Like, what are these guys doing out there? It ticks me off to watch this offense play.
I think my biggest takeaway from Denver's offense in Sunday's game, look, Bo, obviously, I think we can look at this game. There are, some misses that he had. We'll obviously dive into that here in a minute. I mean, Bo had some evident misses there, but Bo also made a lot of plays. And look, man, Bo had a touchdown called back in this game due to a holding call by Garrett Bowles. And it's just like when Denver does one thing well, right? There are a couple of times where they made a play downfield. I'm like, okay, hey, that's good momentum. good job. You had an explosive play against the Ravens defense. And then you see flag on the broadcast screen. That was a little frustrating to see a little bit too much throughout the day. That, some undisciplined moments there, some just bad plays, bad execution, but, mistakes. I think for, Lil Jordan Humphrey tipping that pass up, it hits his hands. He has an opportunity. He's tall. He's 6'4", 6'5". Go up and, try to two-hand that one. I understand it's early on. You're expecting to catch that maybe right here in your chest area, but you got to go up and get that, even if you're going to take a shot from the corner that's coming up there. But aside from all that, I just think the biggest takeaway I have here, Sayre, is that Denver needs another playmaker opposite of Courtland Sutton. Look, I think Courtland Sutton is going to be Denver's primary option. I loved what Courtland did in Sunday's game. Courtland balled out, had himself another 100-yard receiving game. Courtland was making plays here. But Denver, to your point, doesn't have another guy that is making plays. And look, you go to Troy Franklin, who I think, look, he's a young guy. You still get as much investment as your young guys as possible. I want to see more Troy Franklin. I want to see more Devon Vele. I would like to see maybe some more A.T. Perry coming up here for the Broncos. That'll be a conversation we get to here in a minute. But something is clearly not working for the Broncos offense from a playmaker standpoint. Like, you need more guys. You mentioned the no production from the tight end position. That is problematic. I liked how Denver came out in the first half. I thought they ran the ball well, to be honest with you, Sayre. I enjoyed that, but it simply wasn't enough. And to the point, it kind of goes to some play calling stuff. You mentioned earlier, Denver going for it on fourth down several times. I like the aggressiveness. To be honest with you, I love the aggressiveness. I just wish maybe one play in particular is probably smarter, right? It's 3rd and 1. You do a QB sneak, and you get stopped short because your knee goes down. Okay, it's 4th and inches. Why not just QB sneak it again and get pushed there? Instead, you fake an inside handoff. You pitch it out to Javonte Williams, who gets to the right side, and he can't even get there. His knee gets down before he even gets to the yard marker. Like, at that point, you got to dive and extend that football. It's all easier said in hindsight. I just didn't like the outcome. And then the decision to, you have a chance to kick the field goal there and maybe make it, I think, what was it? Maybe a 6-point game at that point, something along those lines, 7-point, whatever it may be. And you take a shot downfield, which I love it because it was an all-out blitz. I love it. But Bo, on that one, we can say, hey, that one's on Bo. Bo overfired on Troy Franklin. You hit him in stride. Like, you don't have to worry. He beats the defender, and it's a touchdown. And maybe it changes the trajectory of the game. But those two plays right there led to a 10-0 lead there for the Baltimore Ravens after the fact. So that's why I think I'm focusing on that. Is it going to change the outcome of the final score of the game? Probably not. But maybe if the game's a little bit closer there, it makes a difference. I found it very interesting. Tony Romo said this, and it's crazy. Right before halftime, obviously Denver, they have a scoring drive. It's 17-10 at that point. It's like, okay, hey, it's a 7-point deficit. Ravens get the ball before halftime. Defense just needs to get a stop. Tony Romo said this during the broadcast, and it speaks to a little bit of the frustration of the outcome of this game. Bo Nix, the last time he was on the field, Denver, it was 17-10. Denver was trailing by 7 points. The next time Bo stepped foot on the field, it was 31-10. So he didn't even have a chance to, because the defense got torched on 2 drives there, one before half and one coming right out of half. That, to me, is a little bit frustrating. I like how Bo's competing. He's fighting. I don't think Bo's the issue. Bo's obviously got some things he can continue to clean up. But Bo, if anyone's watching this game saying, oh, Bo Nix is not the guy, don't know what you're watching. Bo, I think, is a guy, like, he's shown if you give him some playmakers around him, you give him some consistency around him, I think from a playmaker standpoint, you have balance offensively. I like the chances of Bo Nix being a good quarterback in the National Football League and being the guy that can lead this team. Denver's still in a position. They didn't lose this game because of Bo.
No, I'm 100% confident in Bo Nix being the guy for this team, Cody. The way that he's running the offense right now, it's improving every single week. He's hitting targets downfield. I know he did miss the throw to Troy Franklin, but other than, Jared Goff going 18 for 18 in a game this year, and then Lamar Jackson in this game against the Broncos, nobody's going to be perfect out there on a given day. So you might have misses. And I like you said, I like taking the shots. I like taking the risk because you're going into Baltimore. You're trying to steal a win. So if you can get that, if Javonte Williams pushes that ball out, there might be a first down on that play. And I know Bo missed that throw, but man, it's just tough when it's a game of inches and everything does have a domino effect. Like you said, we can't know if the outcome of the game is going to be different either way, but it's consistently, you and I having the same discussion every week on the show. The playmakers suck for the Broncos. It's just, it's tough to watch because you want to see the rookie quarterback make strides. You want to see him be able to make improvements every single week. Why is Lil Jordan Humphrey being featured in this offense for the Denver Broncos when he's dropping passes, when he's fumbling the ball. Marvin Mims, he got another opportunity on Sunday, Cody. He didn't get enough inside on the, even Tony Romo is calling out Marvin Mims. He's calling out Lil Jordan Humphrey. He even called out Courtland at one point for not going and digging the ball out on a play later in the game. It's just, I know that the quarterbacks, they've always got each other's back, but like, it's to the point now that it's like, we've talked about it on the show before, insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. The Broncos are going out there every week. They're putting the same guys out there and expecting something different to happen. And the same things continue to happen, and it's hurting your young quarterback.
Well, and I think another thing, we've seen Denver and Sean Payton move on from the idea of giving Greg Dulcich playing time at tight end. Maybe shaking some things up at the wide receiver position. And that's going to really play into, I think, a big topic going into this week, because Tuesday is a big day around the National Football League. It is the NFL trade deadline. And there are reports this weekend that Denver's not interested in becoming buyers or sellers. But could Sunday's loss change that? We'll share our thoughts and analysis on that here on today's episode, Locked On Broncos. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over there at Hillsdale College, and time is our most precious commodity. So don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Education is always an important step to do that, whether that's history, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Did you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe it's time for a refresher. That's where Hillsdale College comes in handy, because time and technology have changed a lot of things, but they have not changed basic fundamental truths about the world and our place in it through education. And our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free, that's right, F-R-E-E, that spells free, online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, and the Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic. On top of that, like I mentioned, over 40 free courses and more over there on Hillsdale College. They're all self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever you're at. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or you can just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register today. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over there at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, and they had the Broncos on Sunday as 9.5-point underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens. Turns out they knew exactly what they were talking about as Denver loses in blowout fashion, but FanDuel is the place where you can go in and make bets during the game as it's happening. You get a hunch as to something that's going on. You're seeing a certain trend develop with one team in specific or various teams. If you're there watching NFL Red Zone, FanDuel, you can place bets on the same exact page where you can see live play-by-play stats and what more. Whether it's anytime touchdown scores, whether it's money lines, point spreads, player props, FanDuel has it all. And they're giving new customers right now $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's right. If you go and you place your first $5 bet and it wins, FanDuel will give you $150 in bonus bets that you can use on the NFL and other sports all across the globe. So check it out today. Visit FanDuel.com. Once again, visit FanDuel.com to get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Does the Denver Broncos' loss on Sunday to the Baltimore Ravens change whether or not they'll become buyers or sellers at the NFL trade deadline? We'll share our thoughts here on today's episode of the show real quick. Want to thank Broncos Country, as always, all the everydayers and first listeners out there on Broncos Country. Thanks for making the show exactly what it is. Denver at 5-4 right now, having a better season than most people thought. They ran into a very, very tough wall that was the Baltimore Ravens in Sunday's game. Sayre, I found it very interesting. And part of me always wonders, the landscape of the league changes on a week-to-week basis, right? Before Sunday's game, I think this was on Saturday, Diana Rossini of The Athletic put out a report that the Denver Broncos, they're not interested in being buyers or sellers at the NFL trade deadline that is obviously set to hit and impact on Tuesday there. My question is, does the loss on Sunday to Baltimore, considering we just talked about Denver needing another playmaker, does it change whether or not they're buyers or sellers? I saw a lot of immediate overreactions after the game saying, oh, Denver should sell everything. I'm like, let's just hit the pause button there, folks. Like, take a deep breath. They already sold everything. They got a young roster. They got a rookie quarterback. They're in a process where they're building this team right now. So what are they going to sell? Very curious for your thoughts, because I saw Broncos Country have a handful of some interesting takes, including a lot of ones I didn't disagree with in terms of players. Oh, they should move on from this guy. They should get as much premier capital. Like, we're already at this point after a loss like this. Like, I don't understand that.
The Broncos are what, 5-4, Cody?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure this out. Does anybody even understand, anybody who has those takes understand that like this team is still in position to potentially like make the playoffs for the first time? Am I crazy, Cody?
No,
They
you're
have the
not.
chance to make the playoffs for the first time since they won the dang Super Bowl in 2015, and I don't understand this idea that, oh, one loss, the whole season is over. Like, come on, everybody, let's go. Like, let's go get Bo Nix a playmaker. That's what I'm saying. I know that Diana Rossini's report said that the Broncos are not expected to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline, which is really saying absolutely nothing. I mean, Sean Payton, we know, is close with Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel as well. They do a podcast together, obviously. So when she says something about the Broncos, I think it's worth noting, obviously.
Yeah.
But if I'm Sean Payton, who just said after last week's game against the Carolina Panthers, where Bo played his best game of his young season so far, he says that he might have to go get new receivers. I mean, he legitimately just said that a week ago. And I don't know that anything that happened on Sunday is going to change that. And I know that you can't just go out and get somebody willy-nilly. Like the Broncos, if they weren't in on Deontay Johnson at a pick swap, I realize that not everybody's a fit for the locker room. Your pro scouts, they do work on all these guys, et cetera, et cetera. So it's got to be the right fit for your locker room and the culture of your organization and everything like that. But man, for a pick swap, you weren't in on Deontay Johnson. That's very interesting. I would be fascinated to know what the Broncos would be interested in doing here, Cody, because Baron Browning's name has popped up. I think he could be traded. I don't think that means you're a seller, though. I don't think the Broncos will trade. And teams are calling on DJ Jones, it sounds like. I don't think the Broncos would trade him.
No.
People are saying, well, Courtland Sutton, his trade value is as high as it's going to be because he's got back-to-back 100-yard games. If the Broncos trade Courtland Sutton now, after refusing offers for him back when they could have added at the receiver position that, during the draft, and now that Bo Nix has literally nobody else that he can trust to throw the ball to, that would be so frustrating to me. It would be frustrating enough to see the Broncos sit on their hands at the trade deadline, Cody. But with that in mind, because that is a very legitimate and real possibility at this stage, like I just think that, man, trading away Sutton if anybody trading away Sutton right now would tick me off to no end. We would be having a scorched earth episode of the podcast. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's clear as day when you look at how Bo feels. Like, you already got rid of one of the guys Bo was comfortable with in the preseason. That was Tim Patrick. And yes, I hate to say the fact that, hey, we're bringing up Tim Patrick once again. And I'm not saying that Tim Patrick's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for the Broncos, but I'm saying you talk about for a young guy, like right now, like we're seeing Courtland Sutton, he's the security blanket for Bo Nix. You're telling me that Bo wouldn't benefit from having another veteran guy like Tim Patrick, who he clearly, like I said, I was at every Broncos practice, stuff that was early on in OTAs, only open to the media, to the final training camp public practice, where I was like, okay, like Bo is clearly developing chemistry with Tim Patrick on a day-to-day basis, especially in joint practices against the Packers. And he goes out and obviously Tim was his number one target in that game there against the Packers in the preseason. Denver doesn't have another guy like that. Denver doesn't have that other security blanket option. And you're not getting that production out of the tight end position, as we mentioned. So for me, it's like, I don't think that Denver going out right. I don't think Denver's one player away offensively. I think if we're going to have a reasonable take, you need to add a playmaker, but Denver's not one player away. It'll help. Like, it's going to boost your offense having a playmaker. But at this point, who is that playmaker that you could go to? I have no idea at this point, considering where things are at in the NFL, some of the injuries to some potential players that maybe could have been in the mix for some potential trade discussions. But aside from that, we won't know until the November 5th deadline hits here, or in the build up to it. Things could happen on Monday. Things could happen on Tuesday morning. But obviously, I believe it's at 4:00 p.m. Eastern time is when it's going to happen. So 2:00 p.m. Mountain time is when we'll have a bigger idea picture here. But Denver's not one player away offensively from being good. But I'm thinking they are, you need another playmaker to help lessen the load, take it off of Bo Nix's shoulders. And you know what? When are we going to see a little bit more Audric Estime? That's what I want to know in this game. I like the way that he ran late in this game. He's protecting the football. He's running, carried it with two hands. I love that. Then eventually, once you get more comfortability, you'll have it tucked and you'll have the nose there pointed high to your chest there where you can't get it ripped out there. But at this point, why not shake up the offense a little bit? I'm not talking about drastic changes because you don't want to do that. Denver but needs some changes to happen to it, I think, in order to find its rhythm and identity a little bit quicker. And whether it comes via trade, I don't know. But I mean, final thoughts here as we close out today's show, sir.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Cody. I mean, they just need somebody else that they can trust out there, and right now you don't have that. I mean, it's unfortunate because you hoped that maybe Marvin Mims in the offseason could be that guy as a former second-round pick. I don't know what's going on there. Troy Franklin, I think, is still a work in progress. The Broncos may have games where they feature him some, and they may have games where they just try to get him a shot or two, like we saw against the Ravens. But who is that guy opposite Sutton? Devon Bailey. I mean, his involvement has just been a little inconsistent. There's nothing from the tight ends. I mean, it's just tough when you don't have somebody else that's drawing the attention of the defense right now. And it's not like you said, they may not be one player away, but I think the Broncos are one consistent receiver or tight end away from that offense getting to that next level of stopping these silly mistakes on a weekly basis. Man, you just need somebody else out there that can get you that first down, somebody out there that's going to reach for that ball in the back of the end zone, somebody that's going to make that stretch on 3rd and short or 4th and short. That's what the Broncos need right now desperately. I don't know where you get it. Maybe it's not till the offseason, but wherever it comes from, they need to find it and fast.
Yeah, they do. And I think the more as the season progresses, you keep your capital and you look at maybe adding some, maybe double dip in that receiver in first round, second round in this year's upcoming draft. There's obviously some other moves they're going to have to make it. Other positions they'll have to address some long-term clarity on. But, you know, unfortunately, a loss. Denver drops to 5-4 here, blown out by Baltimore here. But you know what? The Kansas City Chiefs are up next. They play on Monday Night Football, but Denver maybe has a chance to catch them on a short week. We'll see exactly how Denver responds from this loss. Also, I don't feel like we talked about it enough, too. Baltimore was coming off of a very rough loss to the Cleveland Browns last week. They came out a little bit angry. You could definitely see it in this game. But I'm very curious to see how Denver responds now, coming off of a loss, a disappointing loss as well. Broncos country, that's the mystery. That's the theme this week here. We'll have you covered. Tomorrow's episode, Lockdown Broncos, we'll bring you up to the NFL trade deadline with the latest news, rumors, analysis pertaining to all things Denver Broncos related, plus a mailbag series. We want your questions sent in, Broncos country, so stay tuned for that. We appreciate you so much. Thanks for rocking with us. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of the show.